Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following content is provided strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. It does not constitute legal, financial, or tax advice. Divorce laws, retirement account regulations, and tax implications vary significantly by state and individual circumstances. You should not act or refrain from acting on the basis of any content included in this video without seeking the appropriate legal or professional advice from an attorney or a certified financial planner licensed in your jurisdiction. The case studies and historical trends discussed are for illustrative purposes and do not represent a certainty of outcomes. Please conduct your own due diligence before making any decisions regarding your retirement assets or legal standing. Imagine working for 35 years, skipping the extra vacations, driving the older car, and meticulously contributing to your 401k every single pay cycle with the singular goal of a quiet, dignified retirement. You watch the compound interest turn modest contributions into a seven-figure nest egg. Then, in a single afternoon, a signature on a legal document cuts that life's work exactly in half. For millions of Americans, the 401k isn't just a retirement account. It is the most significant financial asset they own, often surpassing the equity in their primary residence. Yet, we are currently witnessing a massive cultural shift in the United States where the intersection of aging, wealth accumulation, and rising divorce rates among those over 50 is creating a phenomenon known as the 401k divorce. This is not just a legal procedure. It is a total restructuring of the American dream that is reshaping how we view marriage, labor, and the sunset years of our lives. In this deep dive masterclass, we are going to explore the mechanics of how retirement assets are carved up, the historical trends that led us to this point, and the profound cultural impact this has on the U.S. economy. We are solving a critical problem for you today: the lack of transparency and understanding surrounding the most expensive financial event of a person's life. By the end of this series, you will understand the intricacies of qualified domestic relations orders, the psychological toll of asset division, and why the 401k has become the new battlefield for the American family. To understand the cultural impact, we first have to look at how we got here. In the mid-20th century, the American retirement landscape was dominated by the pension. If you worked for a company for 30 years, you received a monthly check until you passed away. These were defined benefit plans. They were rigid, but they were predictable. However, the passage of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, or ERISA, paved the way for the 401k. This shifted the responsibility of retirement saving from the employer to the employee. We moved from a collective security model to an individualistic accumulation model. Today, there are trillions of dollars held in 401k plans across the country. Because these accounts are tied to an individual's employment, but are often considered community property or marital assets, they have become the primary source of conflict in modern American divorces. The cultural gravity of this cannot be overstated. When a couple divorces in their 30s, they have time to recover. They have decades of earning potential ahead of them to rebuild their portfolios. But we are seeing a massive spike in what sociologists call gray divorce. These are couples ending long-term marriages after the age of 50. According to historical trends and data from the Pew Research Center, the divorce rate for those aged 50 and older has roughly doubled since the 1990s. For those over 65, it has tripled. When a 401k is split at age 60, there is no more runway. There is no more time for the market to heal the wound of a 50% loss in principal. This creates a cultural crisis where an entire generation of Americans is entering retirement with half of what they planned for, leading to a radical change in lifestyle, housing, and healthcare expectations. Consider the case study of a typical American couple. Let's call them Robert and Sarah. Robert worked as a mid-level executive for a manufacturing firm for 28 years, accumulating a 401k balance of $1.2 million. Sarah worked part-time and managed the household, contributing significantly less to her own retirement vehicle. Under the laws of most states, that $1.2 million is considered a marital asset, regardless of whose name is on the account. During their divorce, the court issues a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or a QDRO. This is a highly specialized legal tool that allows the 401k administrator to bypass the usual rules against early withdrawals and transfer a portion of the funds directly to Sarah's own retirement account. The cultural impact here is twofold. First, there is the immediate financial shock. Robert, who thought he was retiring on $60,000 a year in withdrawals, is now looking at $30,000. He may have to work 5 to 10 years longer than anticipated. Second, there is the tax and penalty complexity. If a QDRO is not executed perfectly, the transfer can trigger massive tax liabilities and a 10% early withdrawal penalty if the parties are under age 59 and a half. This creates a high-stakes environment where a simple clerical error in a divorce decree can result in the loss of tens of thousands of dollars to the IRS. Furthermore, we must address the psychological shift in how Americans view their work-life legacy. Decades, the 401k was seen as a personal scoreboard. It represented your sweat equity. Seeing that balance cut in half creates a unique form of financial grief that is becoming a standard part of the American experience. This has led to a rise in prenuptial and postnuptial agreements specifically targeting retirement assets. Culturally, we are moving away from the "what's mine is yours" philosophy of the 1950s and toward a more guarded, segmented approach to marital finances. The 401k divorce also has a profound impact on the broader U.S. economy. When retirement wealth is fragmented, the spending power of seniors drops. This affects everything from the real estate market, as divorcees sell the large family home and compete for smaller apartments, to the travel and leisure industry. The grandma and grandpa, who were supposed to be spending their golden years touring the national parks in an RV, are now often forced back into the gig economy or consulting roles just to maintain their standard of living. We are also seeing a shift in how financial institutions handle these cases. Large brokerage firms now have entire departments dedicated solely to processing QDROs. The legal profession has seen the emergence of QDRO specialists, attorneys who do nothing but calculate the present value of future retirement benefits and draft the specific language required by plan administrators. This level of specialization highlights just how complex and prevalent this issue has become. It is no longer just about who gets the house or the dog. It is about the complex actuarial math of a 401k plan. As we progress through this deep dive, we will look at the specific state-by-state variations, such as the difference between community property states like California and equitable distribution states like New York. We will analyze the impact of inflation on split assets and the specific strategies people are using to protect their retirement while staying within the bounds of the law. This is part 1 of our 10-part journey into the heart of the American retirement crisis. We are moving beyond the surface-level headlines to look at the data, the laws, and the real-world stories that define the cultural impact of the 401k divorce. This is about understanding the systemic changes in our society that have turned our retirement accounts into the most volatile variable in the modern American family structure. By examining these historical trends and potential outcomes, we can better understand the landscape of the 21st century American life and the true cost of the second act after a long-term marriage ends. To truly grasp the cultural weight of the 401k divorce, we have to look at the invisible architecture that governs these accounts. Most people assume that if a judge says the assets are split 50-50, the process is as simple as moving money from one bank account to another. It is not. In the United States, we operate under 2 distinct legal philosophies regarding marital property: community property and equitable distribution. Imagine you are Michael, a 55-year-old software architect living in Austin, Texas, in the current year of 2026. Because Texas is a community property state, every dollar Michael contributed to his 401k from the day he said "I do" until the day he filed for divorce is viewed as belonging equally to his spouse, Linda. It does not matter that Michael was the one who navigated corporate restructuring or spent decades in a cubicle. In the eyes of the law, that account is a joint venture. However, if Michael lived in an equitable distribution state like New York or Florida, the outcome could be entirely different. Here, the court does not just divide the account down the middle. Instead, it looks at what is fair. This introduces a massive amount of uncertainty. The court considers the length of the marriage, the current health of both parties, and their future earning potential. In 2026, where we see a high percentage of dual-income households, the calculation of what is fair has become a central point of cultural and legal contention. We are moving away from standard formulas and toward a bespoke evaluation of a person's lifetime of labor. This creates a high-stakes environment where the quality of your legal representation can literally dictate whether you retire at 65 or 75. The mechanism that makes this division possible is the Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or the QDRO. You must understand that a 401k is protected by a federal law known as ERISA. This law generally prevents creditors from touching your retirement money. It is essentially a fortress. The only key that can unlock that fortress during a divorce is a QDRO. This is a specific legal document, separate from your divorce decree, that must be drafted with surgical precision. If the language does not perfectly align with the specific rules of the 401k plan administrator, the order will be rejected. We have seen historical trends where individuals spend thousands of dollars on legal fees, only to have their QDRO bounce back because of a single missing paragraph or an incorrectly cited plan name. This administrative hurdle adds months, and sometimes years, to the divorce process, leaving assets in a state of limbo while the market continues to fluctuate. Now, let us talk about the tax trap, which is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the 401k divorce. Imagine if Linda receives $500,000 from Michael's 401k via a QDRO. Under federal law, if she rolls that money directly into her own traditional IRA, she avoids immediate taxation. However, if she decides to take a portion of that money as a cash distribution to pay for her new housing or legal fees, she is responsible for the income tax on that amount. The silver lining is that the standard 10% early withdrawal penalty usually does not apply to distributions taken directly through a QDRO, even if the recipient is under age 59 and a half. This is a critical piece of information that many people miss. Yet, the cultural impact here is that we are seeing a generation of divorcees who are forced to cannibalize their future security to pay for their current legal survival. They are trading their 70-year-old selves for their 50-year-old selves, and the long-term economic consequences of this are just beginning to surface in 2026. We also need to address the burden of proof regarding separate property. Historical trends show that many people enter a marriage with an existing 401k balance. In the eyes of the law, the portion of the 401k that existed before the marriage is often considered separate property, while the contributions and the growth on those contributions during the marriage are marital. But here is the problem. The burden of proof is on the account holder. Imagine trying to find 401k statements from 2004 to prove your starting balance when you got married. In the digital age of 2026, you might think this is easy, but many companies have changed plan providers multiple times. Records are lost. Data is migrated. If you cannot prove the premarital value, the court may default to treating the entire balance as a marital asset. This has led to a cultural rise in what we call financial hoarding or obsessive record-keeping among the younger generation of workers who have watched their parents lose half their retirement due to a lack of documentation. The valuation of these accounts is another flashpoint. The value of a 401k is a moving target. If the divorce is filed in January, but the QDRO is not executed until November, what happens if the market has gained or lost 15% in that time frame? This leads to intense negotiations over the date of valuation. Does the spouse get a specific dollar amount, or do they get a percentage of the shares? If they get a percentage of the shares, they participate in the market gains and losses during the transition. If they get a flat dollar amount, they are insulated from market drops but miss out on any rallies. In the volatile economic landscape of 2026, these decisions can result in a difference of tens of thousands of dollars. The psychological stress of watching the ticker symbols while your marriage is being dismantled in court is a unique modern trauma. Furthermore, we are seeing the emergence of the 401k loan as a weapon in divorce proceedings. Historically, people use 401k loans for home down payments or emergencies, but in a divorce, a loan taken out by one spouse effectively reduces the total marital pot. Courts are now having to decide if that loan was used for a marital purpose, or if it was an attempt to dissipate assets before the split. This has created a new level of forensic accounting in standard divorces. We are no longer just looking at bank statements. We are auditing the history of 401k loans to ensure that one partner has not been systematically draining the retirement fund in anticipation of the filing. The cultural shift is also visible in the workplace. Human resources departments are now on the front lines of the 401k divorce. In 2026, companies are increasingly offering legal insurance and divorce support as part of their benefits packages because they recognize that a distracted, financially stressed employee is less productive. The 401k divorce has moved from a private family matter to a corporate productivity issue. When an employee is dealing with the complexities of a QDRO, they are not focused on the Q3 projections. They are focused on whether they will be able to afford their mortgage next month. As we look at the data, we see that women are often disproportionately affected by the 401k divorce. While the QDRO is designed to create equity, historical trends show that women are more likely to use their portion of the retirement assets to cover immediate living expenses after a split, whereas men are more likely to leave the remaining balance to continue growing. This creates a widening retirement wealth gap that persists long after the divorce is finalized. This gendered aspect of asset division is a primary driver of the cultural conversation around alimony and the valuation of non-monetary contributions to a marriage. We are just scratching the surface of how these financial structures dictate our personal lives. The 401k was supposed to be a tool for freedom, but for many, it has become a tether that complicates the pursuit of a new beginning. In the next part, we are going to look at the hidden fees that can gut a retirement account during a transfer and the rise of the gray divorce industry. We will explore how the housing market in 2026 is being directly shaped by these divided retirement funds, and why your 401k might actually be worth less than you think when you factor in the cost of the split. What happens when the person you trusted with your life becomes the person you have to negotiate with for your survival? And more importantly, is there a way to structure your retirement today to prevent a total wipeout tomorrow? We will dive into the specific language of the most successful QDROs and the mistakes that even veteran lawyers are making in this new economic era. The administrative reality of the 401k divorce is where the idealistic notion of a clean break meets the cold, hard machinery of American financial bureaucracy. Most people believe that once a judge signs a divorce decree, the financial ordeal is over. In reality, for many Americans in 2026, that signature is merely the starting gun for a marathon of paperwork that can take 6 to 18 months to finish. The primary obstacle is that a 401k is not a bank account. It is a contract governed by federal law, and that contract does not automatically recognize a state court's divorce decree. This is why the Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO, is the most important document you have never heard of until you need one. Imagine if Marcus, a 52-year-old civil engineer in Chicago, decides to finalize his divorce in early 2026. He has $1 million in a 401k managed by a major telecommunications firm. The court orders a 50-50 split. Marcus assumes he will walk away with $500,000 and his ex-spouse will receive the same. However, the first hurdle is the plan administrator. Every major corporation has a specific set of procedures for how they handle QDROs. Some administrators are notoriously difficult, requiring specific font sizes, exact phrasing that matches their internal summary plan description, and original wet ink signatures. If Marcus's attorney uses a standard template that doesn't account for the specific requirements of that specific plan, the document will be rejected. This is not a hypothetical inconvenience. Historical trends show that nearly 40% of first-time QDRO submissions are rejected for technical errors, adding months of legal fees and market uncertainty to the process. This leads us to the hidden fees that can gut a retirement account before it even changes hands. When a QDRO is processed, the plan administrator often charges a review fee. In 2026, these fees typically range from $500 to $1,500, often deducted directly from the participant's account balance. If the couple is splitting multiple accounts, perhaps a 401k, a 403b from a previous teaching job, and a pension, they are looking at multiple sets of fees. Furthermore, if the account includes complicated assets like company stock or non-diversified holdings, an actuary may need to be hired to determine the present value of the benefits. This is a step-by-step erosion of the very wealth the couple spent decades building. It is a paperwork tax that the industry rarely discusses until the bill arrives. But the most significant cultural shift we are seeing in 2026 is the realization that $1 in a 401k is not worth the same as $1 in a house. This is what financial experts call the tax parity gap. Imagine a scenario where a couple is trying to be fair. They have $400,000 in home equity and $400,000 in a 401k. They agree that one person keeps the house and the other keeps the 401k. On paper, it looks perfectly equal. In practice, it is a disaster for the person keeping the 401k. Why? Because the $400,000 in the house can often be sold with a significant portion of the capital gains being tax-exempt under current U.S. tax law for a primary residence. However, every single cent of that $400,000 in a traditional 401k is a future tax liability. When that individual goes to withdraw the money in retirement, they will have to pay federal and likely state income tax at their ordinary rate. Depending on their bracket in 2026, that $400,000 might actually only represent $280,000 in actual purchasing power. This lack of tax affecting the assets is a leading cause of post-divorce poverty, particularly among older women who may prioritize keeping the family home over the retirement account without understanding the long-term math. We are also witnessing the rapid professionalization of the gray divorce industry. In the past, you hired a generalist divorce lawyer. In 2026, the complexity of the 401k divorce has given rise to the Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, or CDFA. These professionals do not practice law, they practice forensic math. They look at the net after-tax value of every asset. They run Monte Carlo simulations to show a spouse how their standard of living will change over 20 years if they take the 401k versus alimony. This shift tells us something profound about American culture. We have realized that divorce is no longer just a legal event. It is a sophisticated corporate restructuring of a two-person company. The impact on the 2026 housing market cannot be ignored either. When a 401k is split via a QDRO, the recipient often has the option to take a cash-out distribution without the 10% early withdrawal penalty, though they still owe the income tax. Historical trends in 2026 show that a growing number of divorcees are using this one-time penalty-free window to secure a down payment on a new, smaller home. This creates an artificial surge in the real estate market. However, it is a double-edged sword. By using retirement funds to buy a house today, they are sacrificing the compound interest that would have sustained them 10 years from now. We are seeing a generation of house-rich and cash-poor seniors who have traded their 401k for a roof over their heads, only to find they cannot afford the property taxes on that roof once they stop working. Let's look at the specific language of the most successful QDROs to understand where people go wrong. One of the most common legal errors is the failure to address earnings and losses. If a QDRO states that the ex-spouse is to receive $200,000 from the account, but it does not specify that this amount should include investment earnings or losses from the date of the agreement to the date of the actual transfer, a massive conflict arises. If the market goes up 10% while the paperwork is sitting on a desk, who gets that $20,000 gain? If the market drops, does the recipient still get the full $200,000, effectively taking a larger percentage of the remaining pie? In the volatile market of 2026, where a single tech sector swing can change a portfolio's value by 5% in a week, this missing language is a recipe for a return to court and thousands more in legal fees. Then there is the issue of survivorship benefits. Imagine if Marcus, our engineer in Chicago, passes away after the divorce is finalized but before the QDRO is officially qualified by the plan administrator. If the document was not drafted to include qualified pre-retirement survivor annuity protections, his ex-spouse could potentially lose their entire claim to the account. The money would instead go to Marcus's designated beneficiary, which might be a new spouse or his estate. This legal limbo period is a high-stakes window of vulnerability that most couples are completely unaware of. The cultural takeaway here is that the 401k has fundamentally changed the nature of the American breakup. It has introduced a level of technical complexity that makes do-it-yourself divorce almost impossible for the middle class. It has created a new class of financial losers, those who don't understand the tax implications or the administrative hurdles, and a new class of professionals who thrive on navigating this maze. But what happens when the 401k isn't the only retirement asset? What happens when we start talking about the Social Security offset, and how a 401k split interacts with government benefits? And more importantly, as we move into the next phase of this masterclass, we have to ask, is there a way to divorce-proof a 401k before the marriage even hits the rocks? We are going to look at the rise of postnuptial retirement carve-outs and the controversial practice of asset shifting in the years leading up to a filing. We will also explore the psychological phenomenon of account attachment, why people will fight harder for their 401k than they will for their own home, and how that emotional bias is being exploited in 2020's excess mediation rooms. The reality of the 401k divorce is that the math is easy, but the psychology is nearly impossible. How do you divide a life's work without losing your future? We dive into the specific strategies of high net worth splits and the shadow retirement accounts that many people don't even know their spouses have in the next part. To understand the modern landscape of the 401k divorce in 2026, we have to look beyond the standard employee contribution plan and enter the world of high net worth complexity. For the top tier of American earners, the 401k is often just the tip of the iceberg. We are seeing a massive rise in what forensic accountants call shadow retirement accounts. These are assets that function exactly like retirement vehicles, but are often hidden or misclassified during the initial stages of a divorce filing. This is where the cultural impact of the 401k divorce becomes a game of sophisticated financial detection. Imagine the case study of Julian, a high-level executive at a renewable energy firm in Silicon Valley. It is 2026, and Julian is ending a 20-year marriage. On his standard financial disclosure, He lists a 401k worth $1.5 million. To a generalist divorce attorney, this looks like the primary target for division. However, Julian also has a non-qualified deferred compensation plan, or NQDC. Historically, these plans were reserved for the C-suite, but in 2026, they have trickled down to mid-level directors and specialized engineers. An NQDC allows an executive to defer a massive portion of their salary and bonuses into a tax-advantaged account that grows alongside the market. The catch? It is not governed by ERISA. This means a standard QDRO cannot touch it. To divide an NQDC, you need a different legal instrument, often a domestic relations order or a specific provision in a settlement agreement that treats the future payments as a contract debt. Because these accounts do not appear on standard 401k statements, they are frequently overlooked, leading to potential outcomes where one spouse unknowingly leaves millions of dollars on the table. Then there is the phenomenon of the stealth retirement account, the health savings account or HSA. By 2026, the cultural perception of the HSA has shifted from a medical rainy day fund to a powerful investment vehicle. Because HSAs offer a triple tax advantage, tax-deductible contributions, tax-free growth, and tax-free withdrawals for medical expenses, high-income Americans are using them as super IRAs, letting the funds compound for decades. In a divorce, an HSA is a marital asset, yet because it is managed through a health insurance provider rather than a brokerage like Fidelity or Vanguard, it often escapes the scrutiny of the 401k division process. Historical trends show that many couples neglect to include the HSA in their property settlement, allowing the primary account holder to walk away with a six-figure, tax-free medical nest egg that could have been used to offset the division of the 401k. The cultural impact of these shadow accounts has led to a revolution in forensic accounting. In 2026, we are seeing the widespread use of artificial intelligence to perform lifestyle audits during divorces. These AI tools scan years of bank statements and tax returns to find the breadcrumbs of hidden retirement contributions. If an executive's net pay doesn't match their reported salary, the algorithm flags the discrepancy. This level of scrutiny has turned the 401k divorce into a high-stakes digital excavation. It is no longer enough to look at what is in the account today. You have to look at where the money was diverted 5 years ago. This has created a new cultural tension, a total loss of financial privacy even within the context of a long-term marriage. Another critical area of evolution in 2026 is the Social Security offset. This is a technical nuance that carries heavy cultural weight. Imagine a couple where one spouse, Sarah, worked for a government entity that provided a 403b, but did not participate in Social Security. Her husband, David, worked in the private sector, built a large 401k, and paid into Social Security for 30 years. In many jurisdictions, the court will look at Sarah's retirement plan and realize it is designed to replace Social Security. If the court simply splits David's 401k in half, Sarah might end up with her full government retirement plus half of David's 401k, while David is left with half a 401k and a Social Security check that may or may not be enough to live on. To reach a truly equitable distribution, some courts perform a Social Security valuation, calculating the present value of David's future Social Security benefits and using that number to offset how much of the 401k Sarah receives. This is an incredibly complex calculation that involves life expectancy tables and inflation adjustments, and it is a major point of contention in 2026, as the future of Social Security itself remains a topic of national debate. This leads us to the psychological phenomenon of account attachment, or what sociologists call the endowment effect in divorce. There is a profound difference between how people feel about their house and how they feel about their 401k. The house is a shared space filled with memories and often maintenance headaches. The 401k, however, is seen as a direct manifestation of a person's life force and labor. In 2026, we see individuals who are willing to give up the family home, the vacation property, and even liquid cash just to keep their 401k intact. This is not always a rational financial move, especially when you factor in the future tax liabilities we discussed in Part 3. However, the 401k represents future safety in an increasingly volatile world. This emotional bias is frequently exploited in mediation. A savvy negotiator might offer a spouse the house, which has high upkeep costs and potential capital gains taxes, in exchange for a larger share of the 401k. The person who keeps the 401k feels like they won because their retirement number stayed high, but 10 years later, they may realize they traded a tax-free asset for a tax-burdened one. we must also address the rise of the post-nuptial retirement carve-out. In 2026, many couples who are not even considering divorce are visiting lawyers to sign post-nuptial agreements. Why? Because they have seen their peers' lives appended by a 401k split. These agreements often specify that any future growth in a 401k remains the separate property of the contributing spouse, or they set a cap on how much of the retirement account can be divided. Culturally, this represents a move toward the Europeanization of American marriage, where assets are viewed as separate by default rather than communal. It is a defensive posture that reflects the deep-seated fear that a lifetime of saving can be liquidated in a single legal proceeding. For those in the high net worth bracket, we are also seeing the complexity of restricted stock units or RSUs. In 2026, many 401k plans allow for the direct holding of company stock. When these stocks are part of a vesting schedule, the question becomes, when was the effort to earn that stock exerted? If an RSU vests 2 years after the divorce but was granted during the marriage, is it marital property? Courts use something called a coverture fraction to determine the marital portion. This is a step-by-step mathematical formula. The numerator is the months of service during the marriage, and the denominator is the total months of service required for the stock to vest. This fraction determines exactly how much of that future wealth belongs to the ex-spouse. The cultural impact is that people are now staying for the vest, delaying divorce filings until specific stock options or 401k matching milestones are met. The 401k divorce in 2026 is no longer a simple division. It is a forensic, psychological, and strategic battleground. We have moved into an era where the hidden math defines the winner and the loser. But what happens when the 401k isn't enough? What happens when the division of assets leads to a retirement deficit that neither party can recover from? In the next part, we are going to look at the lifestyle collapse phenomenon, how the 401k divorce is creating a new class of working seniors, and the specific impact this has on the U.S. labor market. We will also explore the silver squatters, divorcees who are forced to live together post-divorce because neither can afford to retire on their half of the 401k. This is the dark side of the data, and it is a trend that is accelerating faster than anyone predicted. How do you rebuild when the clock is at zero? We dive into the catch-up strategies of 2026 and why they might not be enough for the average American. The retirement deficit created by a 401k divorce is not just a line item on a balance sheet. It is the catalyst for what sociologists in 2026 are calling the lifestyle collapse. To understand the gravity of this, we must look at the specific case study of Elena, a 62-year-old nurse manager in Atlanta. Before her divorce was finalized in early 2026, she and her husband of 34 years had a combined 401k balance of $1.8 million. Based on historical trends and the 4% withdrawal rule, they were looking at a comfortable retirement income of roughly $72,000 per year, supplemented by Social Security. This was a future of travel, a modest vacation home in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the ability to help their grandchildren with college tuition. However, after the Qualified Domestic Relations Order was executed, Elena's share was $900,000. On the surface, nearly $1 million sounds like a success story, but the math of a single-person household in 2026 tells a different story. Elena no longer benefits from the economies of scale that come with a shared mortgage, shared utility bills, and shared insurance premiums. Her fixed costs have nearly doubled as a percentage of her income. Furthermore, because she had to use a portion of her 401k distribution, taken as a cash-out under the QDRO exception, to secure a new townhome and pay for legal fees, her actual invested principal dropped to $750,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, Elena is now looking at $30,000 a year. This is a 60% reduction in her planned retirement lifestyle. She is no longer looking at the Blue Ridge Mountains. She is looking at how to stay in the workforce until she is 72. This brings us to the rise of the working senior, a demographic that is fundamentally reshaping the U.S. labor market in 2026. For decades, the goal of the 401k system was to facilitate an exit from the workforce. But the 401k divorce has turned that exit into a revolving door. Historical trends show that labor participation rates for Americans over the age of 65 have reached record highs in 2026. This is not because these individuals find a new sense of purpose in the corporate world. It is because their 401k split has left them with a retirement deficit that cannot be bridged by Social Security alone. We are seeing a bottleneck in middle and upper management where older workers, who had planned to retire, are now competing for roles with younger professionals. This has created a cultural tension in the workplace where the silver ceiling prevents younger generations from advancing, all because of the financial fallout of a marital split late in life. Perhaps the most startling cultural phenomenon born from this economic pressure is the emergence of the silver squatters. Imagine a couple that has been legally divorced for 3 years, but still lives in the same 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Phoenix. This is the reality for thousands of Americans in 2026. Neither spouse can afford to buy the other out of the house because their respective halves of the 401k are not liquid enough or large enough to support a new mortgage at 2026 interest rates. If they sell the house, they both enter a rental market that is increasingly predatory toward those on fixed incomes. So they stay. They live in separate wings of the house, maintaining a transactional and often frosty coexistence. The 401k divorce, intended to provide a clean break and a new beginning, has instead created a financial prison where the walls are made of unvested assets and tax liabilities. For those who do manage to move out, the primary strategy is the catch-up plan, but the math in 2026 is increasingly unforgiving. Under the evolved regulations of the Secure Act 2.0 and subsequent 2026 updates, individuals over age 60 have higher contribution limits, allowing them to put significantly more into their 401k than younger workers. But let's look at the step-by-step reality of a catch-up strategy for someone like Elena. If she is 62 and tries to contribute the maximum allowed $30,000 a year for the next 5 years, she is sacrificing nearly half of her take-home pay to do so. This requires an extreme level of austerity at a time when healthcare costs and inflation are at their most volatile. Even with aggressive saving, 5 years of catch-up contributions cannot replace 30 years of compound interest on the original larger principal. The potential outcomes for those starting over at 60 are almost always a downwardly mobile retirement. This financial trauma also has a profound secondary effect: the inheritance drain. For the millennial and Gen Z children of these divorcing boomers and Gen Zers, the 401k divorce represents the evaporation of the great wealth transfer. In previous decades, the 401k was seen as a multi-generational asset, something to be lived on and then passed down. In 2026, the cost of the split, the loss of tax efficiency, and the need for 2 separate retirement infrastructures mean there is often nothing left at the end. The money that was supposed to fund a grandchild's 529 plan, or provide a down payment for a first home, is instead being spent on 2 sets of rent, 2 sets of utility bills, and the high cost of QDRO specialists. This is creating a ripple effect of financial instability that will be felt for the next 40 years of American life. Furthermore, we must examine the impact on the healthcare system. There is a direct correlation between financial stress and health outcomes in seniors. Data from 2026 indicates that individuals navigating a 401k divorce experience higher rates of stress-related illnesses, which in turn leads to increased medical spending. When this is coupled with the reduced retirement fund, we see a spike in medical bankruptcy among the divorced elderly. They are caught in a vicious cycle. The divorce reduced their funds, the stress increased their health costs, and those health costs further deplete the remaining 401k. This is a systemic failure of the individualistic retirement model that ERISA established 50 years ago. The 401k was designed for a stable, nuclear family unit that stays together until death. It was not designed for the modern fluidity of American relationships. As we move deeper into 2026, the cultural impact of this mismatch is becoming impossible to ignore. We are seeing a shift in how financial advisors talk to their clients. They are no longer just asking about risk tolerance. They are asking about relationship durability. They are encouraging clients to view their 401k not as a static pile of money, but as a fragile ecosystem that can be disrupted by a single legal filing. But what if there was a way to mitigate the damage before the filing happens? What are the shadow strategies being used by the most financially savvy Americans to protect their retirement in an era of high divorce rates? In the next part, we are going to look at the controversial world of asset shifting, how people are using 401k loans, life insurance policies, and even offshore structures to create a firewall around their retirement. We will explore the legal and ethical boundaries of these moves and the red flags that forensic accountants look for when they suspect a spouse is preparing for a split. This is where the 401k divorce moves from a tragedy to a chess match. Is it possible to protect your future without breaking the law? We explore the high-stakes world of pre-divorce financial positioning and the specific moves that can save or cost you a fortune in the next part of this deep dive. The strategic maneuvers that take place in the shadow of a pending divorce filing are where the cultural impact of the 401k moves from the courtroom to the counting house. In 2026, we are observing a sophisticated game of financial chess that often begins years before a single legal document is served. This is the era of the preemptive strike. To understand this, we must examine the historical trends of asset shifting and the specific case study of Jackson, a 58-year-old senior director at a logistics firm in Seattle. Jackson noticed his marriage was deteriorating and, fearing the total liquidation of his life's work, began a series of moves that illustrate the fine line between prudent financial planning and the illegal dissipation of marital assets. One of the most common moves we see in 2026 involves the tactical use of 401k loans. Under the Internal Revenue Code Section 72P, an individual can typically borrow up to 50% of their vested account balance, not to exceed $50,000. Jackson decided to take the maximum $50,000 loan from his 401k, ostensibly for home improvements on a property they intended to sell. However, by taking this loan, he effectively reduced the visible value of the marital pot. If the account was worth $500,000, it now appeared as $450,000 on paper, with a $50,000 debt attached to it. The cultural friction arises when the other spouse discovers that the loan proceeds were not spent on the house, but were instead funneled into a separate, private account or used to pay down debts that were solely in Jackson's name. In the legal landscape of 2026, courts are becoming increasingly aggressive in clawing back these funds, viewing them as a breach of the fiduciary duty that spouses owe to the marital estate. This brings us to the concept of the dissipation of assets. In many U.S. jurisdictions, any significant expenditure or transfer of funds made once a marriage has undergone an irretrievable breakdown can be scrutinized. If a court determines that one spouse spent marital funds for their own benefit or intentionally hid them to prevent division, they can order a recapture. This means the court treats the missing money as if it still exists and subtracts that amount from the offending spouse's share of the remaining assets. For Jackson, his attempt to hide $50,000 through a 401k loan could backfire, resulting in him receiving $50,000 less of the actual remaining cash. This high-stakes gamble is a defining characteristic of the modern 401k divorce, where the fear of loss often drives individuals to take risks that ultimately compound their financial ruin. Another shadow strategy involves the use of permanent life insurance policies with cash value components. While not a 401k, these policies are often used as secondary retirement vehicles in 2026. Because the growth within a whole life or universal life policy is tax-deferred, individuals can accumulate significant wealth outside of the traditional retirement system. During a divorce, these policies are frequently overlooked by generalist attorneys. We have seen case studies where a spouse continues to make massive premium payments into a policy during the separation period, effectively shifting marital income into a private, cash-rich vehicle that they hope will be classified as a non-marital insurance expense. However, forensic accountants are now trained to look for the cash surrender value of every insurance policy held by the couple. If the policy was funded with marital income, that cash value is a marital asset, and its division can be just as contentious as the 401k itself. In the highly digitized environment of 2026, the traditional methods of hiding assets, such as cash under the mattress or secret offshore accounts, have largely been replaced by more subtle digital shifts. We are seeing the rise of the digital lifestyle audit. Forensic accounting software now allows investigators to cross-reference years of credit card statements, tax filings, and 401k contribution histories to look for anomalies. If a spouse's 401k contributions suddenly spiked or dropped without a corresponding change in salary, or if there were unexplained administrative fees for opening new subaccounts, the software flags these as red flags. The cultural impact is a total erosion of financial privacy. In a 2026 divorce, your 401k history is a biography of your marriage, revealing every bonus you didn't tell your spouse about and every loan you took behind their back. We must also discuss the role of the Domestic Asset Protection Trust, or DAPT. In certain states like Nevada, South Dakota, and Delaware, laws allow individuals to set up trusts that protect assets from creditors, and in some highly specific and controversial cases, from a former spouse. While federal ERISA law protects 401ks from most creditors, it specifically allows for QDROs to pierce that protection for a spouse. To circumvent this, some high-net-worth individuals attempt to move non-401k assets into a DAPT years before a divorce. This creates a cultural divide in the American legal system. a two-tiered reality where those with the means to hire top-tier asset protection attorneys can shield their wealth, while the middle class, whose primary wealth is locked in a transparent and easily divisible 401k, bears the full brunt of the legal system's equitable distribution rules. The psychological toll of this financial Cold War is profound. In 2026, we are seeing a trend of marital surveillance where spouses monitor each other's 401k portals and bank accounts in real time. This lack of trust is not just a symptom of a failing marriage. It is a response to the systemic reality that once the money is gone or divided, it is almost impossible to replace. This has led to the rise of what is known as the transparency agreement, a component of many modern prenuptial and postnuptial contracts where both parties agree to give each other full, ongoing access to all retirement account data. It is an attempt to use radical transparency to prevent the very shadow strategies we are discussing. The ethical boundary is the most difficult part for many to navigate. Most people do not start their careers planning to hide money from their partner. But when faced with the potential outcome of losing half of a 30-year nest egg, the instinct for self-preservation is powerful. The cultural tragedy of the 401k divorce is that it turns life partners into adversaries in a zero-sum game. If you win, they lose. If they win, your retirement is postponed. This dynamic is a primary driver of the high litigation costs associated with modern divorces. When assets are hidden or shifted, the legal fees required to find them often eat up a significant portion of the very money being fought over. It is a war of attrition where the only certainty is that the total marital estate will be smaller by the time the dust settles. As we move forward, we have to look at the specific challenges of dividing assets that aren't yet liquid. What happens to the 401k that is tied up in a former employer's plan or contains non-publicly traded assets? And how does the valuation of a future pension, the classic defined benefit plan, interact with the modern 401k? In the next part, we are going to dive into the math of the pension 401k hybrid and the absolute nightmare of the double dip. We will explore how one spouse can end up paying for the same asset twice and the specific drafting errors in a QDRO that can lead to a lifetime of overpayments. We will also look at the impact on the kids, how the fight over the 401k is directly translating into a lack of support for adult children and the end of the family bank. The stakes are getting higher and the math is getting more dangerous. We explore the hidden traps of the 401k payout phase and the looming crisis of the bankrupt retiree in the next part of this deep dive. The intersection of legacy defined benefit plans and modern defined contribution plans, the 401k, is where the most explosive financial disputes occur in 2026. For the segment of the American workforce that transitioned through the great pension freeze of the early 2000s, their retirement is often a hybrid model. They have a frozen pension from 15 years of service and a 401k from the subsequent 20 years. When a marriage dissolves, the legal system has to reconcile two fundamentally different types of money. One that is a pile of assets and one that is a promise of income. This reconciliation is not just a mathematical exercise. It is a cultural collision between the old world of corporate security and the new world of individual risk. Imagine if Thomas, a 61-year-old supervisor for a municipal water district in Ohio, finds himself in this situation. It is 2026, and his 30-year marriage to Maria is ending. Thomas has a 401k worth $600,000 and a pension that will pay him $4,000 a month starting at age 65. The 401k is relatively simple to divide on paper, $300,000 each. But how do you divide a $4,000 a month promise? To Maria, that $4,000 represents her future security. To Thomas, it represents 3 decades of waking up at 5 a.m. This is where we encounter the present value calculation, a step-by-step actuarial process that is a major source of litigation in 2026. To divide the pension today, an actuary must determine what that future $4,000 stream is worth in a single lump sum right now. In the economic climate of 2026, this calculation is highly sensitive to interest rates. Historically, when interest rates are high, the present value of a pension drops because the cost to buy that future income in the open market is lower. When rates are low, the value skyrockets. If Maria's lawyer argues for a low discount rate, they might value Thomas's pension at $700,000. If Thomas's lawyer uses a higher rate, they might value it at $400,000. This $300,000 gap becomes the central battleground of the divorce, often costing $20,000 in expert witness fees just to argue about the math. The cultural fallout of this is the double dip controversy. In many U.S. jurisdictions, a conflict arises when a spouse like Maria seeks both alimony and a share of the pension. If Thomas's pension is divided as property in 2026, Maria receives her share of the monthly check. But if the court also looks at Thomas's total income to determine alimony, they might be counting that same pension income twice. Thomas would be paying Maria from the very asset she already received half of during the property division. This has led to a major legislative push in several states to ban the double dip, but the rules remain a confusing patchwork. The result is a generation of retirees who feel the legal system has taxed their labor twice, leading to a deep-seated resentment that colors the post-divorce family dynamic for years. Then we have the QDRO drafting nightmare known as the silent survivor benefit. Most people assume that if they are awarded half a pension, they will receive it for as long as they live. However, many pensions are life-only, meaning they stop the moment the employee, Thomas, passes away. To protect Maria, the QDRO must specifically designate her as a surviving spouse for the purpose of a joint and survivor annuity. If this one specific clause is missing, and Thomas passes away 2 years into retirement, Maria's income stream vanishes instantly. In 2026, we are seeing a spike in professional liability cases against divorce attorneys who failed to secure these survivor benefits, leaving thousands of elderly divorcees in a state of sudden total financial collapse. The 401k divorce is also destroying the family bank. Historically, the 401k served as an informal source of liquidity for the American family. In 2026, adult children often rely on their parents' retirement funds for bridge loans to navigate the high cost of housing or to fund their own children's education. When a 401k is split, that liquidity is halved. But more importantly, the legal fees, which average between $15,000 and $30,000 for a contested 401k split, come directly out of the family's net worth. We are seeing a trend where the intergenerational wealth that was supposed to move from boomers to millennials is being siphoned off by the legal and financial services industries. Case studies in 2026 show that children of divorced parents are significantly less likely to receive a down payment for a home compared to those whose parents stayed together, not because the parents are less generous, but because the 401k divorce has left them with no margin for error. Furthermore, the payout phase of a divided 401k introduces the RMD trap. Required minimum distributions are the IRS-mandated withdrawals that must begin at age 73 under current 2026 regulations. When an account is split via a QDRO, both spouses now have their own RMD schedules based on their respective ages. If there is a significant age gap between the spouses, say a 10-year difference, the older spouse is forced to pull money out and pay taxes much sooner than they would have if the account had remained joint and the spousal rollover rules applied. This accelerated taxation is a hidden cost of divorce that effectively reduces the total life of the money. This brings us to the looming crisis of the bankrupt retiree. Historical trends in 2026 indicate a sharp rise in Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcy filings for individuals over age 65. The primary driver is not credit card debt or medical bills, but the inability to maintain two separate households on a single, divided retirement fund. The 401k was designed as a supplement to Social Security, not a replacement for a two-income household safety net. When the safety net is cut in half, the fall is often fatal to a person's financial standing. We see seniors in 2026 who are forced into the gig economy, not for extra spending money, but to pay for the basic utilities that their divided 401k can no longer cover. The cultural impact is a new retirement realism. The dream of a quiet sunset is being replaced by the reality of a second career necessitated by legal papers signed decades prior. But as the 401k becomes the primary asset of the American middle class, the battle over it is evolving into something even more complex: the custody of the account. Who gets to manage the investments during the months or years the divorce is pending? What happens if one spouse wants to move the funds into high-risk assets, while the other wants stable bonds? In the next part, we will explore the investment tug-of-war during the separation period and the rise of the court-appointed investment master. We will also look at the Social Security trap for stay-at-home parents and why the 401k might be the only thing standing between them and the poverty line. What happens when the person who managed the money for 30 years is no longer in the picture, and the other spouse has to learn the market in the middle of a crisis? The learning curve is steep, and the penalties for failure are absolute. We dive into the financial literacy gap and the predatory industry that targets newly divorced seniors in the next part of this masterclass. The divide between the money spouse and the non-money spouse is a cultural cornerstone of the American household that the 401k divorce completely dismantles in 2026. For decades, a common domestic structure involved one partner taking the lead on long-term financial planning, managing the 401k login credentials, selecting the mutual funds, and adjusting the risk allocations as retirement neared. The other partner often focused on immediate household liquidity, mortgage payments, and daily expenses. When a divorce occurs after age 50, this imbalance creates a financial literacy gap that is as dangerous as the division of assets itself. Imagine the case study of Sophia, a 60-year-old former teacher in Virginia who spent 30 years managing the household while her husband, James, handled their combined investments. After the Qualified Domestic Relations Order is finalized in 2026, Sophia is handed a check for $700,000, her share of the marital 401k. Sophia has never placed a trade. She does not know the difference between an expense ratio and a dividend yield. She has never heard of a target date fund. This creates a state of paralysis. Historical trends show that many non-money spouses, driven by a fear of losing what little they have left, move their entire 401k windfall into low-interest savings accounts or certificates of deposit. In the inflationary environment of 2026, this decision is a slow-motion catastrophe. By avoiding the market, they are losing the purchasing power of their principal every single day. This is the first trap of the financial literacy gap. The transition from a growth-oriented mindset to a survival-oriented mindset that actually accelerates the depletion of the fund. This gap has birthed a predatory industry that specifically targets newly divorced seniors. In 2026, we are seeing a surge in financial recovery seminars held in upscale suburbs, marketed as empowerment sessions for divorcees. These are often high-pressure sales environments where unsuitable financial products are pitched. The most common is the high-commission annuity. An advisor might suggest that Sophia move her $700,000 into an equity-indexed annuity that offers a floor against market losses. While this sounds appealing to a terrified divorcee, the reality often includes 10-year surrender periods and high internal fees that effectively lock up her liquidity exactly when she needs it most to navigate her new single life. This is why the role of a neutral, fee-only financial educator has become so critical in the 2026 divorce process. While the literacy gap handles the aftermath, the investment tug-of-war handles the interim. Between the day a divorce is filed and the day the QDRO is executed, there is often a gap of 12 to 18 months. During this period, the 401k is in a legal state of the marital estate, but the participant spouse usually maintains sole control over the trading. Imagine if James, fearing a 2026 market correction, decides to move the entire 401k into cash. If the market then rallies 20% while the divorce is pending, Sophia has lost out on $140,000 of potential growth. Conversely, if James stays aggressive in high-growth tech stocks and the market crashes, Sophia's future share is decimated before she ever touches it. This conflict has led to the rise of the court-appointed investment master. In high-conflict cases in 2026, judges are increasingly taking the power to trade out of the hands of the spouses and giving it to a neutral third-party professional. This master's job is to move the account into a neutral, low-volatility allocation, often a mix of short-term treasuries and broad market index funds, to preserve the status quo until the assets can be divided. This service is not free. The fees for an investment master can range from $5,000 to $10,000, which is again deducted from the marital pot. The cultural shift here is profound. We no longer trust individuals to manage their own life savings during a divorce because the emotional volatility of the breakup is mirrored in the financial volatility of the account. Then we must address the Social Security trap, which is the invisible ceiling for stay-at-home parents or those who took significant career breaks. In the United States, if you were married for at least 10 years, you are entitled to claim Social Security benefits based on your ex-spouse earnings record, provided you are unmarried and at least age 62. However, in 2026, the 401k division is often used as a reason to waive alimony, which can have a ripple effect on Social Security. If a spouse takes a larger share of the 401k in exchange for giving up their right to future spousal support, they may find themselves in a lower tax bracket, but with a significantly lower monthly cash flow. Furthermore, many people are unaware that if they remarry before age 60, they lose the right to claim on their first spouse's Social Security record. This has created a phenomenon of the strategic single, where divorcees in their 60s avoid remarriage simply to protect their access to their former spouse's higher Social Security benefit. The 401k and Social Security are two halves of the same heart. You cannot cut one without affecting the rhythm of the other. Step by step, the non-money spouse must learn the mechanics of the rollover IRA. If the money from the 401k is not moved directly into a properly structured rollover IRA, the IRS views the transfer as a taxable distribution. In 2026, we are seeing a massive increase in tax-related penalties because individuals tried to manage the rollover themselves using online apps rather than professional custodians. A single mistake in the titling of the account, forgetting to include the words "for the benefit of," can trigger an immediate 30% tax hit. For someone like Sophia, that $700,000 could shrink to less than $500,000 in the blink of an eye. This administrative minefield is the final hurdle in the 401k divorce, and it is the one where the most permanent damage is done. The cultural impact of this literacy gap is a growing class of financially disenfranchised seniors. They are people who played by the rules of the 20th century marriage, but are being crushed by the 21st century financial system. We are seeing a new push for mandatory financial literacy coaching as part of the divorce mediation process in states like California and Illinois. The argument is that an equitable distribution is impossible if one party does not understand what they are receiving. The 401k divorce is exposing the fact that in the US, financial knowledge is power, and the lack of it is a liability that can lead to a lifetime of poverty. As we look toward the final stages of this masterclass, we have to face the most uncomfortable question of all. Is the 401k actually making the divorce rate higher? We are going to look at the theory of financial decoupling, how the portability of the 401k has made it easier for people to leave unhappy marriages compared to the era of the fixed company pension. We will also look at the rise of the divorce-proof 401k and the specific investment vehicles that are being built to survive a marital split. What happens when the person you love becomes a line item on a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet is the only thing keeping you from the street? We explore the intersection of artificial intelligence and divorce settlements, and why the robots might be better at dividing your life than you are. The future of the American family is being written in the code of our retirement accounts, and the final chapters are more shocking than anyone anticipated. We dive into the endgame of the 401k divorce and the legacy of the divided American dream in the next part. The theory of financial decoupling is perhaps the most controversial cultural shift we have seen since the 401k was first introduced in the early 1980s. For decades, the American marriage was held together by a complex web of economic dependencies. In the era of the defined benefit pension, the retirement check was a singular, indivisible unit that usually required the couple to stay together to maximize the benefit. You didn't just retire from a job, you retired as a household. But by 2026, the portability of the 401k has fundamentally changed the internal calculus of the American breakup. Because a 401k is an individual account with a specific balance that can be tracked in real time on a smartphone, it has become an escape hatch. Historical trends suggest that as retirement assets became more liquid and divisible, the psychological barrier to leaving a marriage began to drop. We are no longer talking about splitting a future promise, we are talking about splitting a pile of cash that is already there. Imagine the scenario of Alex, a 48-year-old lead developer in Austin, Texas, in the current year of 2026. Alex has been meticulously contributing to his 401k for 25 years. He watches the balance fluctuate daily. Unlike his grandfather, who had to wait for a pension that was controlled by a board of trustees, Alex knows exactly what his half of the retirement fund is worth at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. This transparency creates a sense of financial autonomy that was impossible 40 years ago. When the marriage hits a rough patch, Alex doesn't have to wonder if he can survive on his own. He can see the math. This is the heart of financial decoupling. The 401k has made the individual more important than the marital unit. It allows for a clean mathematical exit that is driving divorce rates among the highest earning demographics. But as the 401k has made divorce easier to envision, it has also led to the rise of the divorce-proof retirement strategy. In 2026, we are seeing a massive cultural move towards segregated accounting. Young professionals are entering marriages with a defensive mindset. They are being advised by family offices and specialized planners to create a firebreak around their retirement assets. This involves a step-by-step process of maintaining strict separate property boundaries. For example, if Alex starts a new 401k with a different employer after getting married, he is often advised never to roll his premarital 401k into the new plan. Why? Because commingling those funds, even by 1 cent, can legally poison the entire account, turning what was once separate property into a marital asset. We are witnessing the end of the joint financial life era. Couples are now living in a state of financial parallel play, where their 401ks never touch, creating a psychological distance that some sociologists argue makes the marriage itself more fragile. This is where the robots come in. In 2026, the high-stakes mediation room is being taken over by AI-driven fairness algorithms. Traditional mediation often fails because of human emotion, the account attachment we discussed in previous parts. A human spouse might feel that they deserve 60% of the 401k because they stayed home with the kids, while the other spouse feels they deserve 60% because they did the actual work to earn it. To solve this, firms are now using machine learning models that process tens of thousands of data points to find the mathematically perfect split. These models don't just look at the current balance. They perform a deep dive into the tax lot history of the account. Imagine if the AI analyzes Alex's 401k and realizes that a specific portion consists of highly appreciated company stock that carries a massive future tax liability, while another portion is in low-growth bonds. The AI can calculate a split that balances the immediate cash value with the long-term tax burden, ensuring that both parties walk away with equal purchasing power in the year 2045, not just equal dollar amounts today. In 2026, many divorcees actually prefer the robot to the judge. The algorithm has no bias. It doesn't care who cheated or who left. It only cares about the net present value of the assets. This is the endgame of the 401k divorce, the total dehumanization of the asset split. We are turning the end of a family into a data optimization problem. However, even with the most advanced AI, the cultural impact of a divided 401k on generational wealth is devastating. The American dream was built on the idea of compounding. If you start with $1 million and leave it for 30 years, it grows into something that can change the trajectory of your children's lives. But when you cut that million in half at year 15, you aren't just losing $500,000, you are losing the compound interest on that $500,000 for the next 2 decades. Case studies from 2026 show that the 401k divorce is the single greatest destroyer of middle-class inheritance in U.S. history. The money that was meant to fund the next generation's startups or down payments is being burned in the friction of the split. We are seeing a new class of millennials and Gen Z who call themselves the 401k orphans, children of divorce who realize too late that their parents' retirement battle effectively liquidated their own financial future. Furthermore, we must look at the rise of the retirement trust as a defensive tool. High-net-worth individuals are increasingly moving their non-401k retirement savings into irrevocable trusts that are specifically designed to be outside the reach of a divorce court. This creates a cultural divide. The average worker is stuck with a 401k that is a sitting duck in a divorce, while the wealthy use complex legal wrappers to ensure their retirement remains untouchable. This disparity is leading to a growing sense of financial resentment among the American middle class. They feel that the system is designed to facilitate the liquidation of their assets while protecting the wealth of the elite. The 401k divorce has also changed how we view labor in 2026. There is a growing phenomenon of the early retirement strike. We are seeing individuals who, upon realizing they are heading for a divorce, intentionally slow down their career progression or take lower-paying roles to reduce the future value of the marital estate that will be divided. It is a form of financial scorched earth policy. If they can't keep the full 401k, they will ensure there is less of it to split. This has a direct negative impact on the U.S. economy, as highly skilled workers exit their peak earning years prematurely to spite an ex-spouse. The legacy of the divided American dream is one of fragmentation. We have moved from a society of shared security to a society of individual survival. The 401k was supposed to be our freedom, but in the context of a divorce, it has become our most effective weapon. As we conclude this masterclass, we have to look at the ultimate question. What does the survivor's guide to the 401k divorce look like? How do you protect your soul while you are fighting for your spreadsheet? And most importantly, what is the one mistake that 99% of people make in the final week before the QDRO is signed? A mistake that can cost them their entire retirement. We are entering the final chapter of this deep dive. In the concluding part, we are going to look at the final survival checklist for 2026. We will explore the post-divorce rebuild, how to turn a 50% loss into a 100% recovery in record time using the new tax laws of the late 2020s. We will also reveal the shocking data on who actually wins in a 401k divorce and why it isn't always the person with the most money. This is the moment where we move from the tragedy of the split to the strategy of the comeback. What is the one move that can save your retirement when all seems lost? We wrap up this deep dive masterclass with the ultimate blueprint for financial and emotional recovery in the final part. The moment the ink dries on a qualified domestic relations order in 2026, A psychological and financial phenomenon occurs that we call the new zero. For someone like Daniel, a 56-year-old project manager in Denver, this is the most terrifying day of his life. After 28 years of marriage, his $1.4 million 401k has just been cleaved into two $700,000 portions. To Daniel, it feels like the scoreboard has been reset to zero, even though he still has substantial assets. The cultural impact of this moment is the true test of the 401k divorce. It is the pivot from the tragedy of the split to the strategy of the reconstruction. In 2026, the blueprint for recovery is dictated by a high tax environment and the full implementation of the Secure Act 2.0, which offers specific, step-by-step tools for those starting over late in the game. The first step in the 2026 survival blueprint is navigating the sunsetting of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. As of January 1, 2026, the lower tax brackets Americans enjoyed for nearly a decade have reverted to the higher 2017 levels. This means that for Daniel, every dollar remaining in his 401k is now subject to a higher future tax liability than it was just a year ago. The strategy for 2026 is the divorce-induced Roth conversion. Because Daniel's tax filing status has shifted from married filing jointly to single, he may find himself in a unique window where his total taxable income is temporarily lower during the transition year. Historical trends suggest that using this lower income year to convert a portion of the remaining 401k into a Roth IRA can be a pivotal move. While he pays the taxes now, the future growth is tax-free, effectively shielding his recovery from the higher tax rates expected throughout the late 2020s. However, the reconstruction phase is not just about taxes. It is about the aggressive utilization of the 2026 catch-up contribution limits. Under the refined 2026 regulations, individuals aged 60 to 63 can now contribute substantially more to their 401k plans. For Daniel, this means he is no longer aiming for the standard limit. He is maximizing a catch-up provision that, in 2026, allows for over $30,000 in annual tax-deferred growth. To do this, Daniel must embrace a level of lifestyle austerity that is becoming a cultural hallmark of the divorced senior. We see 2026 divorcees moving into micro-apartments or shared housing specifically to redirect 50% of their gross salary into their depleted 401k. This is the aggressive re-entry phase, and while it requires temporary sacrifice, the potential outcomes over a 10-year horizon are the difference between a dignified retirement and total reliance on government programs. Now we must address the one mistake that 99% of people make in the final week before the QDRO is signed, a mistake that causes more secondary financial trauma than the divorce itself. It is the failure of the plan-level beneficiary designation. Most people assume that the divorce decree or the QDRO itself automatically updates who gets the money if they pass away. It does not. In 2026, the Supreme Court has upheld that plan administrators must follow the document on file at the company, regardless of what a state divorce court says. Imagine if Daniel finalized his divorce on a Friday, but dies in a car accident on Monday without logging into his 401k portal to remove his ex-spouse as the primary beneficiary. His ex-spouse would receive the remaining $700,000 in addition to the $700,000 they already took in the divorce. This is the double loss, and it is a clerical error that wipes out billions in intergenerational wealth every year. The 2026 blueprint requires that the very hour the divorce is finalized, you must manually update every single beneficiary form at the custodian level. We also see a cultural shift in 2026 toward the entrepreneurial pivot. For many, the half-sized 401k is simply not enough to sustain the lifestyle they want. Instead of trying to save more, they are using the QDRO cash-out provision, the one-time opportunity to take a distribution without the 10% penalty, to seed a small business. In 2026, the silver startup is a major economic driver. We see former executives using their 401k division to fund consulting firms or specialized craft businesses. They are betting on themselves because the market returns on $700,000 are not as reliable as the potential income from a high-skill business. This is a high-stakes move, but it reflects the 2026 reality that for many, work is the only viable replacement for the lost compound interest of a 30-year marriage. The question of who actually wins in a 401k divorce is one that sociologists are studying deeply in 2026. On paper, it looks like a 50-50 split is a draw, but the data shows that the winner is almost always the spouse who retains the Roth assets and the most time-sensitive growth potential. Furthermore, there is a psychological win that cannot be ignored. Case studies of 2026 divorcees show that those who take a smaller share of the 401k in exchange for total financial independence and the cessation of alimony often report higher levels of long-term life satisfaction. They traded capital for peace, and in the volatile 2026 economy, peace is a valuable asset. The winner is the person who stops looking at the lost 50% and starts optimizing the remaining 50% with surgical precision. As we conclude this deep dive masterclass, we must recognize that the 401k divorce is the defining financial event of the modern American era. It has transformed the retirement account from a passive savings vehicle into a weapon of legal warfare and a tool for radical personal reinvention. We have moved from the security of the pension to the volatility of the individual account, and in doing so, we have made the American family more fragile and the American individual more resilient. The cultural impact is a society that no longer views retirement as a destination you reach with a partner, but as a financial fort you must build, defend, and occasionally rebuild on your own. The 2026 landscape of the 401k divorce is a warning and a roadmap. It warns that without a prenuptial agreement or a clear understanding of tax parity, your life's work is vulnerable. It provides a roadmap by showing that through catch-up contributions, Roth conversions, and administrative diligence, a recovery is possible. The American dream is not dead. It is simply being divided, recalculated, and redistributed. You now have the full 10-part blueprint for navigating the most complex financial event of your life. You understand the QDRO, the tax traps, the shadow accounts, and the reconstruction strategies. But as the 401k landscape continues to shift with new legislation and market volatility, there is one final variable we haven't touched on: the rise of the inherited 401k and the death of the stretch IRA. How will the children of the 401k divorce navigate their own retirement when the laws of inheritance change again in 2027? We have covered the split, but we haven't covered the legacy. To understand the next evolution of American wealth, you have to look at how these divided accounts are passed down to a generation that may never own a home. That is the next deep dive into the 2027 wealth transfer crisis. Your retirement is a story still being written, and the pen is in your hand. Stay focused on the math, stay wary of the traps, and remember that in the world of the 401k divorce, knowledge is the only asset they can't take half of.